I should have known they wouldn't care. Deep down, I think I always knew. But some part of me, maybe the little kid still hoping for approval, believed this time would be different. Graduating from medical school isn't something that just happens. It's years of sleepless nights, crushing debt, missed birthdays, and sacrificing every ounce of free time. I thought, surely, they'll show up for this. Surely, this matters enough. I was wrong. It all started 3 weeks before my graduation ceremony. I was sitting at my tiny kitchen table, eating instant noodles because that's what life looked like when you were surviving on student loans, when the family group chat lit up. Greece, here we come. Beach with umbrella tropical drink. My cousin Lily had sent a picture of flight tickets. My mom reacted with heart emojis. My aunt followed up with a string of excited messages about beach resorts and boat tours. I stared at my phone, confused. Greece? In June? That was when my graduation was scheduled. Maybe it was later in the month, I thought. Maybe they'd still make it. So I typed, "Wait, when are you guys going?" Lily responded almost instantly. June 10th to the 20th. Finally, some real fun. My heart dropped. My ceremony was on June 12th. I waited, thinking someone, anyone, would realize what that meant. That they'd forgotten something kind of important. Silence. So I wrote again. "You know that's the weekend of my graduation, right?" This time, it was my aunt who replied. "Oh honey, we thought you'd understand. It's not like you're a surgeon, yet faced with tears of joy." I just stared at that message, reading it over and over like maybe the words would rearrange themselves into something less humiliating. My mom finally chimed in, but it wasn't any better. "Sweetheart, we booked this months ago. You know how expensive these trips are. We'll celebrate when we get back." Celebrate when they get back. After missing the biggest day of my life. I didn't reply. I couldn't. I sat there in my cramped apartment, phone screen still glowing, realizing exactly where I stood in their list of priorities. For days, I kept telling myself I was overreacting, that it was just bad timing, that they didn't mean to be cruel. But every time I thought about walking across that stage, scanning the audience, and knowing no one would be there for me, it felt like a punch to the gut. The worst part? I kept hearing my aunt's voice in my head. "It's not like you're a surgeon yet." Like everything I had worked for was just some silly hobby. A week before the ceremony, I got a call from my cousin Lily. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. "Hey, so, you're cool with us missing it, right?" she asked, her tone casual, like she was asking if I minded her borrowing a sweater. I swallowed the lump in my throat. "Yeah, sure. Have fun." She laughed, totally oblivious. "Thanks, cuz. We'll bring you back a souvenir." When the call ended, I stared at my reflection in the dark window. I looked exhausted. Hollow. Not from studying, but from realizing that no matter what I achieved, I'd always be the afterthought in this family. But that night, something shifted. I decided I was done begging for their validation. The next morning, I checked my email. A week earlier, I had applied for an international fellowship program on a whim. One of those opportunities you never think you'll actually get. Sitting there, in my inbox, was the subject line. "Congratulations on your acceptance." I read the email 3 times to make sure I wasn't hallucinating. It was real. A 2-year contract with a top-tier hospital abroad. A salary that made my eyes water, especially after living off ramen for so long. They wanted me to start in July. I didn't tell anyone. Not yet. I let them pack their bags and post selfies at the airport. I watched their Instagram stories of sunsets in Santorini and beach cocktails, all while I prepared to leave my old life, and them, behind. Graduation day came. I walked that stage alone. No cheers from the crowd. No family waiting with flowers. But I wasn't sad. Not anymore. I was focused. 2 days after they landed in Greece, I sent a single message to the group chat. It was a photo of me in my graduation gown, holding my diploma in one hand and the signed contract in the other. No caption, just the image. For once, they could sit with the silence. What I didn't expect was how fast the reactions would come in. Lily was the first to text. "OMG, what's that contract?" Then my aunt. "Wait, are you moving?" I ignored them. I had a plane to catch. By the time they returned from their vacation, I'd already be gone. And for the first time in my life, I didn't care what they thought. I thought leaving would feel like some grand moment of freedom. Like I'd step onto that plane and all the bitterness would meld away somewhere over the Atlantic. But as I sat there in the departure lounge, staring at my phone blowing up with messages, I realized something. They weren't going to let this go quietly. It started with curiosity. Where are you going? What's this job about? You didn't say anything about moving. Then it shifted. My mom called twice. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail, her voice light but with that edge I knew too well. Sweetheart, I saw your message. You should have told us about your plans. Call me when you get this. I didn't call. What was there to say? Sorry you missed the biggest moment of my life, but don't worry, I've made sure you won't miss anything else, because I'm gone? By the time I boarded, the tone had shifted again. Lily messaged. Come on, stop being dramatic. We said we'd celebrate when we got back. Then my aunt chimed in. Running away doesn't make you important, you know? A job abroad? Sounds risky. Hope you're not making a mistake just to prove a point. I read that one twice, feeling a flicker of anger. A mistake? Accepting a dream offer because they treated me like I was disposable? As the plane took off, I turned my phone off. I didn't want their words following me to my new life. The hospital in Zurich was beyond anything I could have imagined. The moment I walked through those glass doors, I felt like I'd stepped into a different world, one where people actually valued what I had worked so hard to become. They didn't see me as just a student, or not a surgeon yet. They saw potential. They trusted me. And for once, I felt like I belonged somewhere. Weeks passed. I settled into my apartment overlooking the river, adjusted to the rhythm of work, learned how to order coffee in German without butchering it completely. I thought maybe, just maybe, the distance would make them forget about me for a while. That they'd go back to their usual lives, gossiping about neighbors and planning the next family trip. But I underestimated how much my silence would get under their skin. One evening after a long shift, I finally turned my phone back on and connected to Wi-Fi. Dozens of messages flooded in, mostly from Lily. Hey, can we talk? I didn't mean to upset you. Mom's been asking about you nonstop. We're all worried. That last one made me laugh bitterly. Worried? They weren't worried when they left me to graduate alone. I scrolled further and saw a message from my mom. I know you're angry, but family is family. We make mistakes, but we're here for each other. Please don't shut us out. It would have meant something if it wasn't so predictable. The classic guilt trip. No apologies, just you're being too sensitive, dressed up in concern. I didn't reply. I had no intention of letting them back in, not after realizing how conditional their support had always been. But then, 2 days later, something unexpected happened. I got a video call from a number I didn't recognize. I almost declined it, but curiosity got the better of me. It was Lily. She was sitting on her bed, looking different. Not her usual carefree, Instagram-perfect self. Her eyes were puffy, and she looked like she hadn't slept. Hey, she said, her voice small. I didn't say anything. I just waited. I know you don't want to talk to me. I get it, she continued. But I wanted to say I'm sorry. Like, really sorry. I raised an eyebrow. This wasn't the tone I expected from her. She sighed, running a hand through her messy hair. Look, when we booked that trip, I didn't think it was a big deal. I mean, I thought you'd understand. But when you sent that picture, and then just left, her voice cracked a little. It made me realize how much we took you for granted. I stayed silent, unsure where this was going. Then she dropped the real reason for her call. I need your help, she admitted, her eyes filling with tears. I've applied for a job, and they're asking for references. Real ones. From people who matter. And, well, you're kind of the most successful person in the family right now. I almost laughed out loud. After everything, she was calling me not because she truly cared, but because she needed something. Lily, I finally said, my voice calm but cold, you didn't think my graduation was important enough to show up for. Why would my opinion matter now? Her face crumpled. I know I was awful, but please, this job means everything to me. I leaned back in my chair, letting the weight of the moment settle. For years, I was the one chasing after them, desperate for recognition, for approval. Now, the tables had turned. I'll think about it, I said, before ending the call. I sat there for a long time after, staring out at the city lights reflecting off the river. It was strange. I thought I'd feel satisfaction, revenge, even. But all I felt was empty. Because no job reference, no apology text, no desperate phone call could undo what they'd shown me, that I was only valuable to them when they needed something. And I wasn't sure I wanted to be part of that story anymore. I didn't reply to Lily after that call. I let her sit in the same silence they'd given me when I needed them most. Days passed. Work kept me busy enough to distract me, but every night when I got home, I'd see her name pop up again. Please, just one reference. It's a marketing job. Nothing crazy. I know I messed up, but you're my cousin. Mom says you're being spiteful. I told her she doesn't get it. That last message almost made me respond, but not in the way she probably hoped. Spiteful. That's what they thought of me now. Not the kid who spent years buried in textbooks, not the one who graduated alone because they prioritized cocktails over commitment, but the spiteful one for finally putting myself first. I left her on read. But then, my mom called again. This time, I picked up. Finally, she said, like I'd inconvenienced her by ignoring the dozen missed calls. I didn't say anything. I just waited. I know you're upset, she continued, her voice tight. But freezing out your family isn't healthy. Lily told me about her job situation. She's under a lot of stress. I clenched my jaw. And what does that have to do with me? My mom sighed dramatically, like I was being unreasonable. You're in a position to help. That's what family does, remember? I almost laughed. Now she wanted to play the family helps family card? Funny, I said, keeping my voice steady. I don't remember anyone helping me when I was scraping by for 6 years. There was a pause. I could almost hear her trying to come up with a defense. We didn't think you needed us, she finally said. You've always been so independent. That word, independent. It was their excuse for neglect disguised as a compliment. Right, I muttered. Well, now you get what you wanted. I'm independent. Before she could reply, I ended the call. I knew I was burning bridges, but honestly, those bridges had been crumbling for years. I was just finally acknowledging it. Weeks passed, and slowly the messages stopped. No more guilt trips. No more fake concern. I focused on building my new life, one where I wasn't the family doormat. But just when I thought I was done with them, another message appeared. This time, it wasn't Lily or my mom. It was my aunt. I hope you're proud of yourself. Lily didn't get the job. She's devastated, but I'm sure that doesn't bother you from your fancy apartment. I stared at the words, feeling a mix of anger and disbelief. Proud of myself? For what? Refusing to be manipulated. I didn't respond. I told myself it was over. That I'd finally cut the last thread tying me to people who only saw me as useful when it suited them. But then, a few days later, I got an unexpected email. It was from Lily, not a message, but a formal email forwarded from a company I recognized. The same company she'd been applying to. Attached was a letter. I opened it, expecting to see a rejection. Instead, it was a thank you note for her successful application. Apparently, she'd gotten the job after all. Confused, I scrolled down to see why she sent it to me. That's when I saw her message beneath it. I didn't need your help after all. Just thought you should know I'm doing fine without you. Guess we're both independent now. I felt my stomach twist, not because she got the job, but because even in this, she couldn't resist turning it into some petty victory. I should have been happy for her. I wanted to be the kind of person who could let it go. But all I felt was exhaustion. She didn't reach out to mend things. She didn't want forgiveness. She wanted to win some imaginary game I didn't even know we were playing. That night, I deleted the family group chat. Blocked their numbers. For real this time. It wasn't out of spite. It was survival. I realized that no matter how far I moved, as long as I left the door open, they'd find a way to twist everything back on me. I wasn't going to spend my life proving my worth to people who only saw it when it was convenient. Months passed. Zurich felt like home now. My colleagues became my support system, people who valued me for who I was, not what I could offer them. Every now and then, I wondered if cutting them off entirely was too harsh. If maybe, with time, things would have healed. But that thought always vanished when I remembered the years of being overlooked, belittled, and used. Then, one evening, as I was walking home along the river, my phone buzzed. It was an email from a law firm. At first, I thought it was spam. But when I opened it, my heart started racing. It was about my grandmother's estate. I hadn't thought about my grandmother in months. She'd passed away quietly a year before my graduation. We weren't particularly close, but she was the only one in the family who ever truly encouraged me. The email explained that certain details of her will had just been finalized, and that I needed to get in touch regarding an inheritance. I frowned. My grandmother didn't have much, at least. That's what my family always said. Curious, I scheduled a call with the lawyer. When we spoke, what he told me left me speechless. Apparently, my grandmother had left everything, her house, her savings, even a small plot of land she owned, to me. Not my mom. Not my aunt. Not Lily. Me. The lawyer hesitated before adding, she was very specific in her instructions. She said you were the only one who ever worked for anything. I sat there, stunned. I hadn't expected anything from her. But clearly, she'd seen the same things I had in our family. As the call ended, I realized what this meant. My family, who had ignored me, mocked me, guilt-tripped me, had no idea that I now owned the one thing they'd always valued most: control over the family legacy. And I had a decision to make. Did I tell them? Or let them find out the hard way? I didn't rush to decide. For once, I held all the cards, and I wanted to think carefully about how, or if, I'd play them. The inheritance wasn't life-changing money, but it was enough to make a statement. My grandmother's house wasn't just property, it was the place where every family gathering had happened for decades. Holidays, birthdays, those fake, happy family moments they loved to post about. I could already imagine their faces when they found out they'd been written out of the will entirely. But part of me hesitated. I wasn't like them, or at least, I didn't want to be. I didn't want to use this as some kind of revenge play. I just wanted to live my life in peace, far away from their drama. So, for a few weeks, I did nothing. I signed the necessary documents, transferred the ownership quietly, and went back to focusing on my work. But fate has a funny way of dragging you back into the mess you're trying to escape. One morning, I woke up to a string of frantic emails and missed calls from the lawyer. Apparently, my mom and aunt had tried to put the house up for sale. I almost laughed. Of course they did. They probably thought it was still part of the family estate, assuming everything naturally fell into their laps. The lawyer informed them, very bluntly, that they had no claim, that their mother had left everything to me. Not hours after that conversation, my phone started ringing nonstop. First my mom, then my aunt, then Lily. I let it ring out every time, but I knew it wouldn't end there. I checked my email and, sure enough, there it was, a long, furious message from my mom. How could you do this to us? This isn't what your grandmother would have wanted. That house belongs to the family, not just you. I stared at the words, shaking my head in disbelief. It was almost funny how quickly they flipped the narrative. They never cared about me owning nothing, but now that I had something they wanted, suddenly I was the villain. I was tempted to ignore it, but something inside me snapped. For years, I'd swallowed my pride, kept quiet, and let them diminish me. Not this time. So I replied, Grandma made her choice. Maybe if you treated people like family instead of tools, things would be different. I hit send before I could second-guess it. It didn't take long for the fallout to begin. Lily messaged me within minutes. You're really going to keep the house? After everything? I replied simply. After everything, yes. The next week was a storm of passive-aggressive messages, veiled threats about legal action, which they had no grounds for, and dramatic posts on social media about family betrayal. I watched from a distance, unbothered. They could scream into the void all they wanted. But then, they crossed a line. I got a notification from a neighbor back home, someone I hadn't spoken to in years but who still followed me online. Hey, just a heads up, your mom and aunt were seen going in and out of your grandmother's house yesterday. Thought you already moved abroad. My blood ran cold. They had keys. Of course they did, old ones from before. I hadn't even thought about changing the locks yet. Without wasting a second, I called the lawyer. He confirmed what I feared. It was technically trespassing now. The house was legally mine. I arranged for a locksmith immediately and had security cameras installed the next day. The next time they tried to enter, I got the alert on my phone. There they were, my mom and aunt, standing on the porch, confused and furious when their keys no longer worked. They pounded on the door, shouting things I couldn't hear but could easily imagine. It was surreal, watching it all unfold from miles away, like some twisted reality show. That evening, I sent them both a message, short and to the point. If you set foot on my property again, I'll press charges. Consider this your only warning. No response. For once, they stayed silent. Weeks passed. I figured they'd finally accepted defeat. But I should have known better. Because out of nowhere, I got a message from Lily. I didn't know they were doing that, she wrote. I swear, I told them to stop. I know they crossed the line. I didn't reply. I didn't trust her any more than I trusted them. But then she sent another message that caught me off guard. Look, I get why you hate us, but I wanted to tell you something about Grandma's will. I frowned. My curiosity piqued despite myself. They tried to get her to change it before she passed, Lily continued. I overheard them arguing with her. She refused, said she wouldn't reward greedy children. They were furious. After she died, they told everyone she didn't have much left, but I think they knew exactly what she did, and didn't, leave behind. I sat there, absorbing her words. It made sense now, their desperation, their outrage. They'd known all along. They just thought I'd be too naive, or too forgiving, to enforce it. Lily's final message came through a minute later. I'm not asking for anything. I just thought you deserved to know the truth. For once, she didn't follow it up with a favor or a guilt trip. I didn't know if it was genuine or just another manipulation tactic. But either way, it didn't change my decision. I was done. I transferred the house to a local real estate agency to manage it as a rental property. I didn't want ties to it, or to them. I arranged for all communication to go through the lawyer moving forward. I thought that would be the end of it. But life has a way of throwing one last curveball when you least expect it. Because just as I settled back into my quiet, peaceful routine in Zurich, I got a letter forwarded to me. Not an email, a handwritten letter. From Lily. And what was inside changed everything I thought I knew. Not just about my family, but about why my grandmother had really left me everything. I held the letter in my hands for a long time before opening it. There was something unsettling about it, like feeling the weight of a secret before you even know what it is. Lily could have just sent another text or email, but no, she'd gone old school. Handwritten. That alone told me this wasn't just another plea or guilt trip. When I finally unfolded the paper, I immediately recognized her messy handwriting. I know you probably don't even want to read this, but please, just hear me out. I sighed, already expecting some emotional manipulation. But as I read on, my chest tightened. There's something I never told you. Something Mom and Aunt Carol definitely never would. Before Grandma passed, she called me over. Alone. She was already weak, barely speaking, but she made me promise to deliver a message if things turned out the way she expected. My heart started racing. She told me she was leaving everything to you, not because you're her favorite or because she wanted to punish the rest of us, but because she trusted you with something important. I frowned, confused. Trusted me with what? She said there was a box hidden in the attic, one that no one else knew about. She didn't want Mom or Aunt Carol to ever find it. She said it was for you, and only you, because you were the only one who wouldn't use it for the wrong reasons. I sat bolt upright. A box? I'd been in that house 100 times growing up and never heard a word about anything hidden. I wanted to tell you sooner, Lily continued, but honestly, I was scared. I didn't know what was in it, but judging by how Mom and Aunt acted after Grandma died, I figured it had to be something big. I know you don't trust me. I don't blame you, but I'm telling you now because I think you deserve to know the whole story. Whether you believe me or not is up to you. The letter ended there. No ask, no strings attached. For a long time, I just sat there, staring at the paper. Part of me wanted to dismiss it. Maybe Lily was lying. Maybe it was some elaborate trick to get me to lower my guard. But another part of me, the part that remembered my grandmother's sharp mind and quiet defiance, knew it was probably true. Within a week, I was on a plane back home. I didn't tell anyone I was coming. I flew in, picked up the keys from the agency managing the property, and drove straight to the old house. Walking through that door felt surreal. Like stepping into a memory that didn't belong to me anymore. Everything was just as I remembered. The faded floral wallpaper, the creaky floorboards, the faint smell of old books and lavender. I went straight to the attic. It took hours of searching, but eventually, behind a loose panel in the far corner, I found it. A small, weathered box. Locked. I almost laughed. Of course there was a lock. My grandmother never made anything easy. I rummaged through old drawers and dusty shelves until I finally found a tiny brass key tucked inside a forgotten jewelry box. With a deep breath, I unlocked it. Inside were two things, a stack of letters tied with a ribbon and a thick envelope labeled with my name in my grandmother's handwriting. I opened the envelope first. It wasn't money. It wasn't some secret deed or hidden fortune like I half expected. It was documentation. Evidence. As I flipped through the papers, my stomach dropped. Bank statements, transaction records, legal documents, all pointing to one thing. My mother and aunt had been siphoning money from my grandmother's accounts for years. Tens of thousands quietly drained under the guise of helping with bills and managing expenses. But it was clear as day this wasn't help. It was theft. At the bottom of the stack was a letter. If you're reading this, then they've already tried to take what's left. I knew they would. That's why I left it all to you. I don't need you to seek revenge. I just need you to protect what little dignity this family has left. Do with this information what you think is right. I trust you. Tears blurred my vision as I folded the letter back up. All this time, I thought my grandmother's decision was about rewarding me for working hard or punishing them for neglect. But it was so much deeper than that. She wasn't just leaving me a house, she was leaving me the truth. I spent the next few days scanning every document, securing them with a lawyer, and making sure they were stored safely. I could have gone nuclear, exposed everything, dragged my mother and aunt through court, destroyed whatever image they had left. But as I stood in that empty house, I realized I didn't need to. They had already lost the one thing they valued most: control. I left the box where I found it, locked away in case I ever needed it. Before flying back to Zurich, I sent one final message to Lily. I found the box. Thanks for telling me the truth. She replied within minutes. I didn't do it for them. I did it because I'm tired of the lies too. I didn't know if that made us allies or just two people caught in the fallout of a toxic family. Either way, I was done playing their game. Back in Zurich, I resumed my life, this time lighter, freer, knowing I wasn't carrying the weight of their expectations or their secrets anymore. I never heard from my mom or aunt again, but I knew, deep down, they were still wondering why my grandmother had chosen me. And I smiled knowing they'd never get the answer.